Hi, I am Dr.SP Reddy. Welcome to the subject software testing. And today we are going to discuss about retesting and regression testing. Retesting is also called as confirmation testing, which is also called as verification testing. So we are going to cover these two topics, retesting and regression testing. So before going to this retesting, just we will have a look about these steps. See, when the software test engineer executes the test cases, then there will be two statuses. Either the test case execution may pass or test case execution may fail. If the test case execution is failed, means there is a defect. That means the defect is found. After finding the defect, the concerned software test engineer is supposed to report that defect to the development team. How to report the defect? There will be a mechanism. Through that mechanism, the testing team will report the defects to the development team. Either it may be a manual or maybe by using a tools that we will discuss going forward. So once the defect is reported to the development team, that developers will rectify or will resolve that defect. How they will rectify the defect or how they will resolve the defect? The defect will be rectified or resolved by modifying the code. Because why we got the defect? Due to some mistake in the code. So in order to resolve that defect, the concerned developer has to modify the code. By doing some modifications to the code, the concerned developer will rectify or will resolve that defect. And once that defect is rectified or resolved, then the concerned software test engineer, that means concerned software test engineer means the software test engineer who has found the defect and who has reported the defect. The concerned software test engineer has to do retesting. For what purpose? He has to confirm or he has to verify whether the defect is properly fixed or the defect is properly rectified or the defect is properly resolved by the developer or not. For this confirmation, he has to do retesting. That is why retesting is also called as confirmation testing or verification testing. And then regression testing will come into picture. That means if any dependencies are there on this particular defect, if any dependencies are there in the functionality where the defect is found, on those dependencies, the concerned software test engineer has to do regression testing. This regression testing we will take in the next session, in the coming slides. Right? This is the concept of retesting or confirmation testing. Now, see, retesting is also called as a confirmation testing, which is also called as verification testing. Who is responsible for this retesting? The retesting will be done by the concerned software test engineer. And what do you mean by the retesting? Retesting is nothing but re-execution of this particular failed test case in order to confirm the fix. That means whether the defect is fixed or not. The fixing of the defect is nothing but rectifying the defect, which is nothing but resolving the defect. So what is the retesting? Retesting is nothing but re-execution of that particular failed test case in order to confirm or in order to verify whether that particular defect is properly fixed or not, whether that particular defect is properly resolved or rectified or not. When that retesting will happen as soon as the defect is fixed or resolved by the development team. Then immediately the concerned software test engineer has to do this retesting. How they will do this retesting? By executing the previously failed test case. And why this retesting should be done? Same, we discussed earlier, to confirm whether the concerned developer has fixed or resolved or rectified the defect properly or not. In order to confirm the defect fixing done properly or not, we have to do retesting. So this is about retesting or confirmation testing, which is also called as verification testing. Now, regression testing. Before going to regression testing, I will explain a small concept here. Say for example, this is a system, this is an application which is designed and developed. All these stars, just only for your understanding only, just I am giving this example, just only for your easy understanding, right? So let us assume all these stars are the functionalities or the specifications. For each and every functionality and for each and every specification, the software test engineer has to design the test cases and has to execute the test cases to check whether the functionalities are working properly or not. Now, during this testing, one defect is found in this particular functionality or the specification. Now, see here, the output of this functionality is given as input to this particular functionality, and the output of this functionality has given as an input to this particular functionality. That means there is a link, there is a dependency between these functionalities and these two functionalities, right? This is called a dependency. I repeat. So all these stars or say specifications are the functionalities. During this testing, the software test engineer has found a defect in this particular functionality. Now, this functionality is linked with this functionality and this functionality. Now, so say for example, the output of this particular functionality is given as input to this particular functionality, and the output of the functionality is given as an input to this particular functionality. Say example. Now, so that means there is a link, there is a dependency between this functionality and this functionality and this functionality and this functionality. Dependency is there. Now, if there is a defect, what the software test engineer, what the software developers are supposed to do? They have to fix this defect in this functionality. They have to rectify the defect in this functionality. They have to resolve this defect in the functionality. How they will rectify the defect in this functionality? By doing some modifications for the code. That is, the code will be modified for this functionality in order to fix the defect, right? Now, during this modification, the code is disturbed and they have rectified that defect. Now, earlier, before modifying the code, this functionality was working, this functionality is working, say example. Now, due to these modifications in this code, there may be some impact on this particular functionality. Due to some modifications in this code, there will be some impact on this particular functionality. That means code is disturbed. So, now what you are supposed to do is, the software test engineer has to test this functionality and this functionality along with this functionality. Because there is a dependency, there should not be any disturbance on these functionalities, right? This testing is called regression testing. Originally, the defect is found in this particular functionality, but there is a dependency between this functionality and this functionality and this functionality and this functionality. So they have done some modifications in order to rectify the defect. After doing some modifications for the existing code, there should not be any impact on the dependent functionalities. So while doing the retesting, after completion of the retesting of this particular functionality, along with this particular functionality, the software test engineer has to do testing on this functionality and he has to test this functionality also in order to check is there any impact after modifying the code, right? This testing is called regression testing. It is very, very, very important. Now see, what is a regression testing? So regression testing is nothing but the re-execution of a sum or all the test cases to check. That means sum or all means which are the dependencies. So why any modification or fixing of the defect has not introduced any defect in unchanged part of the software? Because they have not changed anything here. They have not changed any code here. These are called unchanged software. So in order to check this, is there any defect, is there any effect, impact on this unchanged software part, they have to do regression testing. This regression testing can be performed at all the levels of testing. That means the regression testing will be done during the unit testing, during the integration testing, during the system testing also. So what is the main purpose of doing this regression testing? To ensure that previously working dependent functionalities continues to work after fixing the defect. Because previously these functionalities are working properly. Now you have to ensure the previously working dependent functionalities continues to work after fixing the defect. That is called regression testing. This is the definition of the regression testing. Now, so rerunning the previously conducted tests to ensure that the unchanged components of function correctly. The main purpose of regression testing is this regression testing will increase the confidence in the correctness. It will check the correctness of the new logic. That means new logic means the modified one. And it ensures, the regression testing ensures the continuous working of unmodified portions. That means the functionalities which are not modified. And it ensures that the previously working functionalities continues to work after the defect is fixed. For these 4 reasons, we are doing regression testing. So in interview they may ask you, what do you mean by the regression testing? What is the definition of regression testing? So here the regression testing is this one. What is the meaning of regression testing or definition of regression testing? Regression testing is nothing but to ensure that previously working dependent functionalities continues to work after fixing the defect. And why should we do regression testing? What is the main purpose of regression testing? What is the main aim of regression testing? They may ask you in an interview. So you have to explain these 4 points. Right? Thank you. So please subscribe my channel, share my videos to all the student community, and please like my sessions. Don't forget to raise your comments in the comment box. Thank you.